On June 12, 2026, SpaceX officially went public, and within hours, history was made. As the company's stock price surged, Elon Musk crossed a line that no human being had ever crossed before. For the first time in history, one person had accumulated a net worth of $1 trillion. That moment immediately ignited a political debate. Immediately after this information was released, Senator Elizabeth Warren stood before the cameras and argued that no one should ever possess that much wealth. Soon afterward, the Massachusetts senator released a video making a striking comparison. The key: average American family would have to work for 11 million years to accumulate the same wealth as Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is officially the world's first trillionaire. Think about that. We're living at a time when more and more people are just hanging on by their fingernails to survive in this economy. And Elon Musk has more money and more wealth than anyone in human history. I want to be clear. This is not just some fluke. It is a feature of a rigged economy. Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill cut healthcare for millions of Americans to give guys like Elon bigger tax breaks. The tax code rewards CEOs for firing workers and replacing them with AI. Loopholes have allowed Jeff Bezos to pay an effective tax rate lower than a Boston public school teacher. And we are left with a country where a handful of billionaires at the top pop champagne in their $300 million yachts, while working people take on even more shifts to try to pay off their student loan debt. The top 1% of U.S. earners now have more wealth.
Her conclusion was straightforward. Elon Musk wasn't simply a successful entrepreneur. He was the product of a rigged economic system. And if America wanted fairness, she argued, it needed a wealth tax aimed squarely at billionaires. Listening to that argument left me with an uncomfortable feeling. In today's political climate, extraordinary success is increasingly being treated as something suspicious, as though building enormous wealth is, by itself, evidence of wrongdoing. America's most successful entrepreneurs have become convenient political targets, and the wealthy are often portrayed less as innovators and more as villains. History has seen this pattern before. In communist regimes, businessmen and industrialists were frequently labeled enemies of the people. Wealth itself became proof of guilt. Many lost everything. Some paid with their lives during political purges carried out in the name of equality, and history has already delivered its verdict on that experiment. Once you destroy the incentive to build, innovate, and create wealth, economic decline follows. Productivity collapses. Poverty spreads. Nations that once promised equality often end up delivering stagnation instead. Cuba stands as one example. North Korea is another. Their stories remind us what happens when success becomes something to punish instead of something to encourage. Now, to be fair, Elizabeth Warren isn't entirely wrong. She's right, but only halfway. And sometimes half the truth can be just as misleading as a lie. Yes, the average American family could never earn Elon Musk's fortune through an ordinary paycheck. That part is true. What she leaves out, however, is the part that matters most. Elon Musk didn't wake up one morning with $1 trillion. He didn't inherit an empire. He didn't hit the lottery. His fortune was built on extraordinary risk, years of failure, sleepless nights, and the willingness to lose absolutely everything. He failed. And by his own admission, he believed failure was far more likely than success. Most people would have no idea who Elon Musk was today. He might have ended up bankrupt. He might have lost every dollar he'd ever earned. And homeless. That's why I hope you'll stay with me through this story, because there are facts here that simply cannot be ignored. Let's rewind to 2002. When PayPal was sold to eBay, Musk walked away with roughly $165 to $180 million after taxes. For almost anyone else, that would have been the finish line, a fortune large enough to retire comfortably for life. But Elon Musk didn't retire. Instead, he did something that most financial advisors would have called reckless. He bet almost everything. He poured approximately $100 million into building SpaceX from the ground up, invested another $70 million into Tesla, and committed another $10 million to SolarCity. Rather than protecting his fortune, he risked nearly all of it on companies that many experts believed were destined to fail. Then he made an even more unbelievable decision. He wasn't going to buy a rocket company. He was going to build one himself. That meant competing with aerospace giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin. while also challenging governments that had dominated spaceflight for decades, including Russia, China, and the European space programs. He entered an industry that had operated under the same assumption for more than half a century. Every new generation of rockets would simply become more expensive than the last. Most people thought he was completely out of his mind. Musk, however, saw something different. He believed the industry's biggest problem wasn't technology. It was the way it thought. He saw enormous inefficiencies that everyone else had simply accepted as normal, and he believed those problems could be solved. There's a story that perfectly illustrates this mindset. Musk once asked NASA, "What's your budget for this project?" The response surprised him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Musk replied, "how much are you planning to spend?" NASA's answer was simple. "We just need it to work." Musk responded, "No. Every project needs a budget." That exchange revealed something remarkable. An entire industry had become so accustomed to cost-plus contracts and unlimited government spending that controlling costs was no longer even part of the conversation. And what did taxpayers receive in return? A rocket that could only be used once. Think about that for a moment. Imagine buying a Boeing 747, flying from New York to London, landing safely, and then immediately cutting the airplane into pieces and throwing it into a scrapyard. It sounds absurd. Yet for decades, that's essentially how the space industry operated. People often asked Musk how likely he thought SpaceX was to succeed. He never exaggerated the odds. He never pretended success was inevitable. "I think we probably have about a 10% chance," he admitted. In other words, he believed there was a 90% chance he would lose everything. He once said that he had mentally prepared himself for failure, and for a while, it looked like failure was exactly where the story was headed. The first launch exploded, then the second, then the third. 3 catastrophic failures in a row. The fourth launch wasn't just another attempt. It was the last one he could afford. If that rocket failed, SpaceX would be finished. His money would be gone. His dream would be over. Imagine carrying that kind of pressure on your shoulders. Then the impossible happened. The fourth launch succeeded. And from that moment on, one stubborn entrepreneur accomplished what many of the world's leading rocket scientists had insisted could never be done. For the first time in history, a privately developed liquid-fueled rocket reached orbit. Soon afterward, SpaceX became the first private company ever to successfully dock a spacecraft with the International Space Station. Something that, until then, only national governments had achieved. Then came another moment that spoke volumes. Boeing eventually tried to accomplish what SpaceX had already done. Their spacecraft successfully carried astronauts into orbit, but it couldn't bring them home. So who ended up rescuing them? SpaceX. That's not political spin. That's simply what happened. Now at this point you might be thinking, why should I care? I'm never going to space. Actually, you should care. A lot. Because every time government programs become inefficient, every time billions of dollars are wasted solving problems that shouldn't exist in the first place, somebody pays the bill, and that somebody is you. Through your taxes, through your internet bill, through your phone service, the cost of inefficiency never disappears. It simply gets passed on to ordinary Americans. But Musk's greatest breakthrough wasn't just reaching orbit. It was accomplishing something that nearly every aerospace expert had declared impossible. He landed the rocket booster back on Earth. Think back to the first time you saw that footage. A massive rocket falling from the edge of space, guiding itself with astonishing precision before touching down vertically on a landing pad. It looked like science fiction, except it was real. And it changed everything. For decades, launching a rocket was like buying a brand new Boeing 747, flying it across the Atlantic once, and then throwing it into a scrapyard. Musk asked a simple question. Why would anyone build transportation that can only be used once? By making rockets reusable, SpaceX fundamentally changed the economics of spaceflight. Satellite companies no longer needed an entirely new rocket every time they launched into orbit. Launch costs dropped dramatically. Missions became cheaper, faster, and far more efficient. Had Musk failed, those costs wouldn't have magically disappeared. They would simply have found their way into your life through higher taxes, more expensive communications, and countless products that rely on satellite infrastructure. SpaceX didn't merely improve an industry, it rewrote the rules, but Elon Musk wasn't finished. His next revolution happened much closer to home. For years, the conventional wisdom inside Detroit was that mass-market electric vehicles simply weren't practical. At best, they were expensive toys for wealthy Californians. The world's largest automakers had spent more than a century perfecting gasoline-powered cars. They had billions of dollars invested in existing factories, supply chains, and political influence, and nearly all of them reached the same conclusion. It can't be done. Every serious attempt had fallen short. Early electric vehicles were slow, impractical, expensive, and in some cases plagued by reliability and battery safety concerns. So, the industry stopped trying. Elon Musk didn't. He kept going while almost everyone else laughed. When Tesla finally succeeded, the rest of the global auto industry had no choice but to follow. Many competitors predicted Tesla would collapse. Some openly hoped it would. Critics insisted the business model was impossible. Today, nearly every major automaker in the world is investing billions of dollars in electric vehicles, whether they admit it or not. They're all walking through the door that Tesla forced open. Then Musk did something Elizabeth Warren almost never talks about. In 2014, Tesla possessed some of the most valuable electric vehicle technology on Earth. Under normal circumstances, those patents would have been locked away like crown jewels. Instead, Musk announced something almost unheard of in corporate America. We will not initiate patent lawsuits against anyone who wants to use our technology in good faith. Think about what that meant. He effectively opened Tesla's technology to competitors. While corporate lawyers typically advise companies to guard their patents at all costs, Musk chose the opposite approach. Consider this. To this day, Coca-Cola keeps its famous formula locked away in a vault. Pharmaceutical companies aggressively defend their intellectual property. You don't see companies like Pfizer giving away their patents for free. Yet Musk publicly invited competitors to use Tesla's technology as long as they acted in good faith. Why? Because he believed accelerating humanity's transition to sustainable transportation mattered more than squeezing every last dollar out of a monopoly. Greedy people don't voluntarily give away their competitive advantage. Remember that. Whether you admire Elon Musk or not, there's another fact that's difficult to ignore. He has also become one of the most influential defenders of free expression in the modern era. When SpaceX built Starlink, it didn't just launch another satellite network. It created a communication system capable of reaching people in war zones, remote communities, disaster areas, and countries where authoritarian governments try to control access to information. When traditional communications infrastructure failed, or was deliberately shut down, Starlink often remained online. Time and again, during humanitarian crises and armed conflicts, SpaceX deployed Starlink terminals to restore communications when people needed them most. Then Musk purchased one of the world's largest social media platforms. Before that acquisition, many users believed unpopular political opinions were increasingly being removed from public debate. Accounts were suspended. Voices disappeared. People were often punished simply for expressing views that challenged prevailing narratives. You can certainly criticize Musk's management style. Reasonable people do. But it's difficult to deny what he says he stands for, at a time when both governments and powerful corporations have shown increasing interest in shaping what people are allowed to say. Musk has repeatedly argued that free societies depend on protecting free speech, even when the opinions being expressed are unpopular. Now let me tell you the story that Elizabeth Warren will probably never tell. When SpaceX went public and Elon Musk officially became the world's first trillionaire, he wasn't the only person whose life changed overnight. Thousands of SpaceX employees became millionaires the very same day. Not celebrities, not executives whose names appear in newspapers, ordinary engineers, technicians, machinists, welders, people most Americans will never hear about. Imagine one of them. Let's say he was a welder. 20 years earlier, he had a secure job at a large company. The pay was decent. The future looked stable. Then Elon Musk came along with an offer. Come build rockets with me. The salary will be lower. The hours will be brutal. You'll work nights, weekends, and holidays. But I'll give you stock, not cash. Stock in a company that almost every expert believed was destined to explode, quite literally. His wife thought he was making the biggest mistake of his life. His father-in-law thought he was even crazier. Stay where it's safe, they told him. Why gamble your families? Future on the dream of an eccentric billionaire? But he took the risk anyway. He accepted lower pay. He accepted stock instead of guaranteed income. He missed birthdays, family dinners, countless evenings at home. He welded rockets that exploded on the launch pad. Then he showed up the next morning and welded another one, not because success was guaranteed, because he believed they were building something worth believing in. Then came Friday morning, June 12th, 2026. He woke up a millionaire. That's how free market capitalism works at its best. The people willing to take extraordinary risks are often the ones who earn extraordinary rewards. Not because success is guaranteed, because failure was always a very real possibility. And perhaps the most important part of the story is this. Elon Musk didn't rise alone. He brought thousands of others with him. People who believed in the mission before Wall Street did. People who invested years of their lives when almost everyone else thought the entire company was doomed. When success finally arrived, they shared in it, because the reward was enormous. But so was the risk. Meanwhile, many politicians in Washington have spent entire careers avoiding that kind of risk altogether. They've chosen security over uncertainty, caution over boldness. Elon Musk chose the opposite path. He repeatedly put everything on the line. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him politically, that's the kind of courage that built companies, created industries, and changed history. You should be grateful to live in a country where a welder can become a millionaire. Not because he was born into privilege, not because he knew the right politicians, but because he believed in a dream and had the courage to stick with it when almost everyone else thought he was making a terrible mistake.
That's the part of the story Elizabeth Warren leaves out. What she says about Elon Musk is only half the story. Because capitalism has never been about taking wealth from those who create it simply to redistribute it. At its best, capitalism rewards people who take risks, solve difficult problems, and create value that didn't exist before. Let's be clear. Capitalism isn't perfect. It never has been. A free market needs rules. It needs transparency. It needs competition. And it absolutely needs people willing to challenge corruption wherever it appears. Because capitalism doesn't fail when entrepreneurs become successful. It fails when wealth and political power merge together. It begins to break down when corporations stop competing in the marketplace and start competing in the halls of Washington. It breaks when buying political influence becomes easier than building a better product. It breaks when the people being regulated become the same people writing the regulations. That's not free market capitalism. That's crony capitalism. It's the quiet handshake between corporate boardrooms and government offices. When money starts writing the rules, the law gradually stops protecting ordinary citizens and starts protecting those who already hold power. If you think that has never happened in America, history suggests otherwise. Look at the American railroad industry during the late 19th century. Railroads were the revolutionary technology of their era. Much like commercial spaceflight is today, competition was fierce. Companies battled relentlessly on price, routes, and expansion. Eventually, many of them discovered something. Controlling the market through politics could be easier than competing in the marketplace. The federal government established the Interstate Commerce Commission in 1887 to regulate the railroad industry. To the public, it sounded like a victory for accountability. Over time, however, critics argued that the commission often served the interests of the very industry it was supposed to regulate. A famous letter attributed to Attorney General Richard Olney reflected that concern, suggesting that a regulatory agency could become more useful to railroad companies than harmful to them by reassuring the public while shielding established firms from competition. Whether you agree with that interpretation or not, the warning remains relevant. The greatest threat to capitalism isn't competition. It's regulatory capture. It's when the referee stops being neutral. As long as entrepreneurs like Elon Musk succeed or fail based on whether they can build better products, attract customers, and outperform competitors in the marketplace, capitalism is still doing what it was designed to do. And as long as America remains a place where talent, innovation, and hard work have a genuine chance to change someone's life, that's something worth protecting. More importantly, it's something worth being grateful for. Thank you for watching.